Okay, so you're out of prison and you start to hang out with Dominick Cicale.
Yes.
Who I interviewed not too long ago.
Yes.
Dominic had no idea that you were working with the feds.
No.
And
Dominic and I formed a really strong bond.
Well, you said that if he actually knew that you were an informant, he would have killed you.
In a second. He would have killed me, but that's who he was. See, you got to remember one thing. You met Dominic now, but I know Dominic before and now. And Dominic is, one thing that Dominic might never want to say, Dominic really did have a big heart, okay? I seen him do things that was, with his family. He had a loving heart, and he was always kind of looking for that kind of, and he got that love to his family, okay? To his daughter and stuff like that, okay? But he also was very true to that life. And he was not going to hesitate to kill me. And I think he even said he would have felt bad. I think he really would have felt bad because we were that close. And I would have did anything for Dominic, to be honest with you.
Well, you said that if he actually tried to kill you over the whole informant thing, you wouldn't have tried to defend yourself.
No.
Because you would have respected his decision to do that, which is kind of crazy also.
Well, in my martial arts system, it was called a Bushido. A Bushido it's a code. It's like you have the honor of a samurai, but you're not a samurai. But in the samurai system, you have your best friend as the guy to cut your head off after you do to perform the serpico. And so Dominic, I loved him that much that I don't think I would have wanted anybody else to do it but him.
Well, you did actually give the feds information on Dominic.
Very little, yes.
Well, you said that he was a soldier and he got bumped up to captain.
Yes.
But you never really implicated him into anything really serious.
No.
Although they did ask about the Frank Santoro murder.
Yes, but that was all over the Bronx.
Okay.
Everybody more or less knew it. Patty Falsetti was married to a girl, Janice, who actually her father was another heroin dealer back in those days too. She was married to Patty Boy, who was actually, I think, an underboss now in the Genovese family. And she went around telling people, and everybody was talking about it. It wasn't like it was a big secret. So I didn't really actually, I wasn't the only guy cooperating with the government. So, you know what I mean? But I did my part, so to speak.
Well, you said that you did jobs with Dominic that you never told the feds about.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about any of those jobs now?
Yeah, there was a time when I went to go see, we were going to go grab this kid hippie who went around saying that he did stuff to Dominic with a baseball bat and with all this crazy nonsense he was talking about. I'm going to kill Dominic when he gets back into the Bronx and all of this stuff. And so Dominic, myself, and two other guys went to the place where he hung out, and hippie was not going to make it that night. Nothing happened. We were all strapped up. I don't even know. I might have had my bulletproof vest on at that time. But yeah, I didn't tell him because, well, you know why I didn't tell him really? Because nothing really happened. I mean, hippie's very lucky that day, you know? There was another time where me and another wise guy and Dominic went to go set a guy on fire because he smacked Dominic's father. And thank God that guy never showed up home, but we waited for about 4 hours there, and he never showed up. I didn't mention anything because, well, nothing happened.
Well, around that time, when you look at the history of the Mafia,
mm-hmm.
there were lots of made members that cooperated, associates that cooperated.
True.
But Mafia bosses did not cooperate. But all that changed
mm-hmm.
with Joe Massino.
That's right.
Who was the head of the Bonanno crime family.
Who hated rats more than anybody. He said he hated the Bonanno family for what that Joe Pistone thing did. He wanted to change the name from the Bonanno family to the Massino family.
Ha.
Okay. And I was with this guy, Jerry Chili. He's passed away now, too. He's a captain. And we got really close at MDC. And he said, too, I never liked him. Now, once again, they always usually say that after the fact that he found it's no good, but he probably was true. I would believe him because I liked him. Matter of fact, when I got sent to the box, they came to get me. He's actually reached out to his wife, and he reached out to then my fiance at that time to call up, and that's how they knew I was in there. And my lawyer got alerted. Everybody knew. See, that's the way we stuck together. Very good like that.
Well, Joe Massino lost a trial.
He did.
And was facing...
the death penalty, I think.
The death penalty.
Yes.
And then he came in with a get out of jail free card. He said, well, if you overturn my bid, I know information about a hit on, it was the prosecutor?
Yes.
Right.
And it was the Assistant U.S. Attorney Greg Andreas,
right,
and also a hit on Judge Garifas.
Now, Dominic talked to me when I interviewed him about this. He thinks that Joe Massino set all this up from the get-go. He knew he was going to lose trial, and he needed something to basically get him out of this serious situation. So the whole thing about the hit was set up in order for him to snitch on the person who's setting it up.
That was Joe Massino's in to become a cooperator. He made up the story that Vinny wanted to kill the prosecutor. So they accepted him to come in to wear a wire. Because without that, like Andres told him, you can't give me anything.
So
I know everything.
He planned this whole thing before he even went in.
Before he was found guilty.
Before he was found guilty. He knew that he was probably going to be found guilty and he would get life.
And this would be
So he set up a situation that he started himself to make it look like there was a hit out on the federal prosecutor, which would set off red flags everywhere.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
It could be. Dominic, remember one thing, Dominic was a higher level than me. So Dominic was privy to more information than I was. So I couldn't say that he was wrong. The only reason why I had gotten wind of it, and then I alerted the FBI to it when I had gotten wind to it, I'm actually the one who actually stopped it, if it was really going to happen.
Right, because Dominic was involved in that hit that was supposed to happen.
I don't believe Dominic was.
No?
No, I don't know if Dominic was really involved. He might have been setting up, but I don't know if Dominic was away then or not. I'm not sure, so I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But but if the hit was real, and then Dominic would be in on it.
Right. And ultimately, that allowed Joe Massino to avoid the death penalty and essentially be put in witness protection at one point, and then he died some years later, right?
Yeah, what a loss.
When you found out that Joe Massino, a mafia boss from one of the 5 families, cooperated, how did you feel? Consider that you're cooperating yourself as well.
Yeah. Well, it kind of lessens the blow on what I'm doing. Listen, I've seen a lot of guys that were killers in the street, pure killers, that when they'd walk into a bar, the bar would actually people would start leaving. That's how they would, because they didn't want to be around.
Yeah.
And yet you put them in the box and they start pressing the button, I want to speak to the prosecutor or the assistant U.S. attorney. Okay? So I seen guys that were real tough, and then I seen guys you would never think, and they wouldn't say nothing. You couldn't beat it out of them. And Dominic was one of my guys that I know for a fact wouldn't have said anything until they betrayed him. I know it because I'm willing to put my life on that. Okay, because I know him in the street. I know him now. Okay, but there is this loyalty thing. When you get a guy like Joe Massino, he had I forget how much money he had. They found him with $10 million in gold and then money. He owned 5 houses.
He was wealthy, yeah.
His wife got to keep all his houses.
Crazy.
Him and his mother, his mother or something like that too. Really? This is how you reward people after they're doing what they're doing, but you hate them first, you hate them, and now you reward them. I don't get it. Well, it did kind of make me feel like, wow, what is this life now? Listen, I would have died for my mother and father. And so you couldn't have got anything because, to me, I actually at one time when I was a kid said I'd rather die before my mother and father because at least I know they'd be there for me. And that's kind of selfish in its own way, but because that's not the way the general order goes. Well, they had Dominic and Vinny was so close, the both of them guys, you couldn't separate them. Matter of fact, Vinny, Dominic learned things from Vinny. I started learning things from Dominic. It was really like a tight-knit crew, you know what I mean? And Vinny actually talked to me while we were in the hole together. Both of us were in the law library. When I mean law library, there was all this glass and bullshit. I asked Vinny, I said, why did you talk to Joe? What happened? Why'd you say anything? And he said to me, more or less, he said, he's the boss, Joe. What am I supposed to do? I think he was trying to justify it, what he did. Because Vinny, listen, I don't want to talk bad about Vinny because Vinny is not he does the right thing in that kind of way. But a lot of these rules, like guys like Joe, do you think they really want to give up their lifestyle? It's nice to be the top and stuff like that. And that's why a lot of times I think, as a matter of fact, they say in politics the same thing. You run a few years and then get out. He should have been the boss, Joe Massino, for a few years. You had $10 million. How old are you? You need more money than that? I mean, I'm not counting your money, Vlad. I know you're not counting mine, but really? At my age, if I had $10 million, I'm 63 years old. I'm going to die with a few million. Right? Come on.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've always considered this whole snitching code is really just a way to protect the guys at the top and use the guys at the bottom as crash dummies. Right?
But we always
That's how I look at it. Because when you go to like white collar crimes, everyone's cooperating and it's just established that everyone's going to snitch. No one's going to hold their mouth. But in the mafia, it's like, oh, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. But then you have the mafia guys, the mafia bosses like Joe cooperating and setting people up for murders and everything else like that.
Could you imagine a boss of a family doing that to somebody like Vinny and anybody else?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, this is the whole thing. This is the reason why. Look, when you're an associate like me, you get pinched, you don't cooperate. Now maybe you can come home, you get bumped up to a soldier, like John Gotti did when he did a piece of work and they said, okay, now you're this and that, or like anybody else for that matter. And there are some guys that do it because you're trying to get your way up to the top. You got a life. This is what you're looking for. This is what you want. But those guys at the top, they're tired. Although you got a guy like Fat Tony Salerno, got 100 years, took it on the chin like it was nothing. So... some guys, look, he's pretty much was on his deathbed anyways. So what do you got to lose? Are you going to leave a legacy of not snitching, or you're going to rat everybody out and live like a year like Joe? Like how long did Joe live? And he ratted on everybody, and now his name is ruined.
Yeah.
Okay?